Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Iron Purpose Podcast. This is episode 26, featuring my good friend Chris Saicoe, who is also a fellow correctional officer, and we get into that in the conversation. We also get into video games, Chris's journey from growing up in LA to transitioning to Minnesota with his family, working in crazy max security jails over in LA, and transitioning to working for the jail here locally, where he kind of went from having his armor on and his knight helmet down, as we kind of talk about going to battle, kind of us versus them mentality, to now switching to kind of a new rehabilitation side of jailing and being a correctional officer, where we got to kind of take the helmet off sometimes, remove that mask, sheath the sword, and just kind of be there one-on-one with somebody. And we kind of get into that conversation, what that looks like. It's pretty neat. We also talk about adversity and how it's all part of the plan. And then we wrap it up with mental health, talking about mental health and how important it is to stay on top of that. We just wrapped up Mental Health Awareness Month in May. I thought it was going to be in June. I got my months mixed up. I think that, mental health awareness should be every single month, should be every single week, every day. It should be something that people prioritize. If you're one of those people who are struggling with mental health and you don't have anybody to talk to and you are hearing this, please reach out. Whether it's commenting on this video or sending me a direct message, please reach out. We kind of talk about it in the episode. Chris is another great guy who he's on the peer support team at the jail, and somebody that would be a huge asset in talking to if that is something that you were struggling with. Well, let's get into the episode. Stay sharp, everybody. Action! We can edit that out.
No, we don't need to.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Iron Purpose Podcast. We were just talking about it. This is episode number 26, and I have a coworker and, even more importantly, a friend of mine, Chris Saicoe, joining me today. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
Doing so good. Yeah, it's I've been thinking about for a while about getting you on here. So after the other day, and we'll dive into it a little bit. You sent out an email in reference to kind of Mental Health Awareness Month, which is May. I was thinking it was June. Got a little mixed up here. So we're wrapping up the month talking about this. But mental health awareness, I think, should be every month. It should be every week or day. But we'll get into that, and that should be interesting to talk about. But what you been up to lately? Anything fun and exciting?
Well, it's been warming up, so I've been out in the garden. Got the tomatoes, peppers, peas, all that stuff's all planted. I still got to get the corn and the cauliflower and all that stuff in, but we're about halfway there, making slow gains.
I forgot you did that. How big is your garden?
25 by 40, give or take.
Decent, yeah.
It's about the size of my garage. So it's on the side of my garage, and that was a useless space. I personally hate grass. I think it's useless. I don't raise cattle, therefore I don't need grass. So I just tilled it all under, and my wife was like, "That was a bigger spot than I thought you were going to do." I was like, "Yeah, we're going to have a garden."
And then we're going to eat it because we can't eat this grass. Were you eating this grass beforehand? You're like, this is dumb.
No, just angry that there's so much grass to mow. There's no greater waste of your time than mowing grass. I'm sorry to everybody who loves it. If I had a rider, maybe I would enjoy it more. But push mowing 3/4 of an acre is it's dumb, and it's not a good use of my time.
Yeah, I think there's a happy medium in there somewhere. Like I enjoy mowing. I think my yard is as big as I would like to go without having a rider, because I mowed like golf courses and stuff growing up. And you put your headphones in and you sit on one of those puppies and go around. But I mean, you're not getting paid to mow your own grass either. So
right. Well, I feel like that would be therapeutic. The hum of the motor, and you're just kind of driving is fun. It's like you're on a little golf or a little go-kart or something like that, mowing your grass. Cool. But pushing a mower for 3/4 of an acre, nah, just not my thing.
Hot and sweaty, and bugs are coming after you, and
and mosquitoes. Mosquitoes absolutely love me. It's something about that, like that ginger gene, they just come and get me, you and like no one has to wear mosquito repellent if I'm around. They just come to me, just me. So
I was gonna say, do I just have to like rub up next to you? But no, they
no,
just
you just have to be in my vicinity. If you're within 10, 15, 20 feet, you don't have to worry
you're
about it.
just solid.
Yeah.
You should show, like people show up to your house and you're like, hey, I need you charge like a 25-cent fee.
No chemical citronella candles necessary. Just invite Chris over for a party. You can pay me in beer.
That's amazing. Yeah, sign me up. Speaking of, but this is actually an energy drink. It's not
Oh,
a alcoholic beverage. I'm rocking the what are they, Alanis today? I'm all
oh,
out of ghosts.
man, I severely limit my caffeine intake now, but the few times that I drank the Alanis, it was like
Oh man.
techno was playing in my head. I was just
That's
walking
a
around going, and you have to understand with
That's what it
like
feels like.
all of the brain things that I have going on with ADHD and everything else, like I have that naturally. So if I'm upping that with 300 milligrams of caffeine or whatever it is, it's just there's
Just a
no
rave.
focus. Yeah, I'm having a great time, but people around me probably aren't.
That's amazing. I was gonna say, I feel like there's techno music going off in your head as it is, but
Yeah, I literally wake up with a different song in my head every day.
I know because sometimes you sing them and then they get stuck in my head, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Just out of the blue. I
Oh
can't
man,
remember
if
what the.
someone sings something and it gets stuck in my head, they don't understand that it's there for hours, bro. Like you don't know what you're doing to me when you do that. It's cruel.
That's hilarious. You're out in your garden, you're just humming that. Ah, Bailey curses.
Yeah, dude.
Uh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's the
So
worst.
speaking of music, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but you have a little drum set in the background, and then
Hmm.
you made a Step Brothers joke, and then forgot. I forgot, lost my train of thought. But do you play, or did you play, or what's the story with that?
Yeah, so my dad's side of the family super musical. Um, my dad was a drummer, therefore I had to be a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was the drum captain in high school. We had a like 350 piece marching band. Like there, we had a lot of people at my school. We got to travel to Ireland for St. Patrick's Day. I got to march in the Dublin parade on St.
Holy crap,
Patrick's
dude!
Day. Yeah, it was a super
Wow.
cool experience. So music's always been a big part of my life. Um, been drumming since like first grade. I let my daughter get on there and just make noise. She doesn't play, but she just makes noise. But that's where it starts, right? You just get a feel for where everything is. I
Mm-hmm.
want to make a bunch of noise. I want to hit all the things. That's where it starts, and then eventually I can kind of mold that into something else.
Mm-hmm. That's how
Love it.
I've always loved like making beats. I feel like I can stay on beat pretty good,
Mhm.
and so I borrowed a drum set from a tattoo artist a couple years ago, and got it in my basement, had it all set up, and I was ready to just go to town and be really good at it, and was awful. I sucked so bad. And it was
That
like, oh, there's more to this than just
you
smacking all this stuff around.
you kind of have to be able to unhook your brain from your hands and your feet because all four of your appendages are going to be doing something different, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a natural thing to be able to do. To just okay, this hand's going to keep time like this, and this hand's going to be on the offbeat, and then your feet are going to be doing
Who
different
knows what?
things. Yeah,
Huh.
whether you're yeah, it's it takes a long time to develop that.
It's like you have to just be one with the drum set. Have you ever seen the Avatar, like those blue people Avatar,
I
the
saw.
movie?
Did they come out with a third one yet? I've seen both the first and second one.
I think it was just first and second, but for some reason that reminded me of like when they meet those animals and they take like their braid and they connect with it. Like you hop into your drum set, you go it's like
Yeah,
hello Chris, and you just go to autopilot.
that's literally how it feels. Like when you're in the zone and you're just kind of okay, you're doing your thing. Because the second you start thinking about, I want my left hand to do this, it's done. Like
Interesting.
you can't think
Do
too
you,
hard about it.
do you think you've gotten good at the drums because you're good at being what's the word I'm thinking of? Not multitask. Yeah, multitasking. You're good at multitasking, or do you think like do the drums has helped you become a better multitasker?
It's hard to tell because it's always been a part of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Between that and playing video games with my old man, I've always got something going on this monitor, something going on this monitor. It it's just kind of, maybe I've developed ADHD for myself over the years. I'm not a psychologist, so I couldn't tell you how that happened, but
Right.
there's a lot of chaos, and the drums help me kind of hone that chaos.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's awesome. And you said you played video games with your dad. Do you still do that?
Mhm. Well, last night I did.
Really?
Video game, yeah, is so, man, we'd have to really go back in time to kind of fully explain that. We used to go dirt biking and mountain climbing and stuff, and then in December of whenever I was in second grade, how old that, in 96 or so, 95, 96, whatever. Um, we were going to go riding that weekend, and my uncle's dirt bike wasn't running correctly, so he's like, "Hey, I'll take it down the street. I'll listen to it, because that's what you do. You listen to it. Okay, what's the problem? Let's diagnose. Let's rip it apart, figure it out, so we can go riding that weekend." Well, he wasn't wearing any gear, sandals, tank top because 90s, um, shorts, no helmet. Takes it down the street. Nobody knows what happened, but my other neighbor, you hear the crash, and then my other neighbor goes running down there, and it's just carnage. Broke everything on the left side of his body, severe TBI, brain injury. He's got 3 dents in his head from the surgery. Used to call him bowling
Wow.
ball head. Um,
Of course you did.
yeah, because hey man, my humor comes from him, so he had that coming. Uh,
Look what you created, old man.
yeah. So like many months in the hospital after that, and because my parents were divorced, it
Mm.
was just me and him. I had to be his rehab. I
Oh
had to
wow.
help him in and out of the bathtub and stuff like that for a long time. Um, and all of that to say, we could no longer do these cool active things that we used to do. There was no more dirt biking after that. There was no more mountain climbing after that. It was just video games that we could connect, because we could sit comfortably in our space in the living room, and we could just play and have a good
Mm.
time. So that's how we connected, and that's how I still connect with my friends back in California, those that
Mm-hmm.
play video games. I've got a buddy in Washington, like my oldest friend, who I met in a video game that I still play with to this day. Um, and that's kind of our connection, because being out here in Minnesota, I don't have a connection to all of them back home.
Mm-hmm. And your dad still lives out in Cali, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Man, I appreciate you sharing that because that's because a lot of times nowadays I think people who play video games get a bad kind of a bad rap where whether it's nerd or why don't you go do something better with your time or whatever the case may be. And I know like you have a was it a Super Mario backpack?
Yeah. Um, my daughter just decided that I needed to have that backpack, and so I sport it very proudly, because my daughter bought me that backpack. Daddy needs
That's
this Super
amazing.
Mario backpack. You need to you need to bring that to work. Okay, sweetheart, I'll do that for you.
I love that, and you rock it. But
Yeah,
it's almost like there's even like
actually.
a deeper meaning behind it too. Like it's not just a video game; it's a way for me to connect with people that I care a lot about, and
Hmm.
because like you're able to do like you could FaceTime somebody, but you could also hop on a game and play and talk to them at the same time. So like, what an awesome
That's what all this
outlet!
is.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And for anybody who on video games, like, it increases your hand-eye coordination. There were games that we used to play that taught me. I learned how to type, because early internet games, it was this chat feature. Not We didn't have this. And you get to learn basic economics, like you're selling things to other people, and you're learning, how I make money, and how I can always be progressing. Like, there's a lot of things to be learned from video games, and so long as you're using it purposely, like you're playing with people that you love, you spend your time with people that maybe I can't spend with here. That there's a lot that can be gained from playing video games. That we're not all just people sitting in the basement for 16 hours a day, vegging out, just playing mindless things.
hmm I've seen a lot of videos go around social media of like empty Halo like lobbies where people used to like you hop on your game and you wait for everybody to get in there like like people are signing in, and it's like this lobby is now closed, and there's like sad Halo music playing. And it's like, oh man, like these are the times. Like it was really cool to be able to have like these LAN parties. And I remember one time in youth group we had like, man, there had to be like 30, 40 people come, and they all brought their own Xboxes and their Halo, and
Yeah.
like we had a projector screen, we had TV there, TV there, TV there, cords everywhere.
Oh
Everybody's
yeah.
huddled together. We're drinking Mountain Dew, eating pizza, and like it was so much fun. Like, and like even my brothers, like growing up, we were homeschooled. I was homeschooled until seventh grade, and so, and I was not an early bird by any means. I would like to stay up late and sleep in really late as well. Um, and we would wake up before school, before my mom and dad would wake up, and we'd go down there and we'd be playing the latest game we got. A lot of times it was like the
Mm-hmm.
old PlayStation, like Jack and Dexter, Ratchet and Clank. Or we'd hop on Halo and make our own. Like Halo 3 had like this feature where you could make your own maps and design it how you want it. And so we'd stay up, or we'd be up at like 4 in the morning playing until we had to go to or go do our schoolwork. And then we'd obviously get outside and go play out in the woods and whatnot. But like those are moments like with my brothers, like that's like that like helped shape my childhood in a way. So it's so cool.
But there's something to be said about gaming next to somebody. So, for instance, like you're younger than me, you clearly came up with a 360 if you were playing Halo 3, but I came up with a Nintendo, like the Nintendo and Atari, right? Old
Right.
school here. So, like if you're playing shoot Contra or whatever, and or Super Tecmo Bowl, which you probably don't know, if you were able to look at your friend's controller, you'd know exactly what move they were gonna do on football, so you could counter it, right? So you could kind of cheat there. But if you got caught slipping or you got caught talking a bunch of crap, they could reach over and they could punch you in the mouth.
Right.
So that's where kids, they don't have that right now. They're by
Mm,
themselves. They're playing on the internet, and there's no repercussions for the terrible things that they're saying in here.
right.
And they don't have their buddy sitting there go, know what? Shut your mouth. Like I'm not going to take it anymore.
Right.
They've got this safe space to yell horrendous crap at strangers on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Which
They're,
is,
they're,
you know, which is where a lot of like cyberbullying and stuff can happen too. People get too big for their britches, hiding
mhm.
behind their screens. And I like what you said about like being purposeful with it, like having it be intentional, like not just coming down here, plugging in and escaping reality permanently.
Mhm.
Like it's okay to come in and like just kind of get away from everything, but if you're trying to get away from your problems completely and solely with video games or disconnecting from your life for a long time, I think that could be detrimental to your health.
Right. So everything boils down to dopamine, right? So video games give you that dopamine hit, and too much of anything for that dopamine hit is going to lead to bad things. So if you're sitting around 12, 16 hours of just hitting that dopamine hit from video games, yeah, you're going to be depressed eventually. But if you're being intentional with it and you're planning your week out, something you can look forward to, like Wednesdays, I play Warcraft 3 from early 2000s with my buddy back in California on Wednesday nights. It's our thing. 7:30 his time, 9:30 my time. We're going to jump on, we're going to play for an hour. And that's how we connect and kind of reminisce about old times, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if I were spending my Saturdays avoiding my family and playing from sun up until sundown, I'd probably feel like a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that,
Honestly,
and I did feel like a
right.
piece of shit. Like, this is personal experience, right?
Right.
So everything
Absolutely.
in moderation.
Yeah. No, I agree. Cool. That took us down a little rabbit trail. I didn't think it was going to, but that was really fun. And while we're here, what's your favorite video game of all time?
All time.
All time,
A game that
and
I, I,
why?
s- I still go back to on occasion. It's called Ultima Online. It's anybody in like the massively multiplayer space would know it, but if World of Warcraft, right? Everybody's heard of World of Warcraft, the massively online game. It had two predecessors, Ultima Online and EverQuest. Loved both of them, but Ultima Online was the best because it was absolutely savage. There was no law. So if you step outside of town and someone else decides they're going to kill you, they can, and B, they could take all of your stuff. So anything that you've worked to get over the last however many hours, someone comes in, wipes you out, and they bounce. You've started over. The last however many hours was for nothing.
Oh man.
Um, there are also thieves. So in in town where there's guards and you're protected, thieves can kind of stealth up next to you and like, I want that, and they can run away. And if you can't take them out yourself, like you lost whatever that was. So
Interesting.
in a sense, going back to the video games where like when you're sitting next to somebody and you can like put them in check if they get out of line, same thing in that game. If you're being an asshole to somebody in this game, well, the second you step out of town, someone can take care of that. Like if you're being a jerk, karma comes.
Uh-huh.
So it had like this self-regulating population that I really enjoyed, but it was too hardcore for a lot of people, which is why things led to World of Warcraft, where you can't lose anything and people can't take your stuff, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
theme park. I just miss those
Interesting.
days.
The Wild West.
Yeah, it was the Wild West of the internet.
Oh, interesting. I've never even heard of that. What'd you call it? Ultima?
Ultima Online. So it was based off the Ultima series, which was before you were born. Um,
Probably.
it started with a Calebeth, which would have been in the 70s, which is before my time. Started with that and then moved on to the Ultima series, the big, like, was it 5 and a quarter floppies, the big ones, not the little ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it went through Ultima 1 through 7 before it got to Ultima Online. So like pre-internet all the way to 7.
Oh
Very
wow.
deep history, very like there's a lot to them. Um, but they're old, and then eventually sold out to EA Games, which destroys everything. They can't do well with games because they're greedy.
How so?
And then they so EA is used to making sports games, right?
Right.
And they're very good at making sports games. New sports game every year, you know, whether it's Madden or soccer or whatever. I don't really do sports, so that's hard for me. But with a game with RPGs where there's a rich storyline and there's deep history behind them, you're not going to release a new game every year. There's not enough time to develop that game. They have to be developed over many years, and then they
Mm-hmm.
have to be polished so you're not dropping like a buggy product. Again, this was before internet, a lot of these games, then they were able to do that. And then once Ultima Online came out, obviously the internet was the thing at that point. You're playing it online and you can patch things. They Games started rushing to production. Whatever, we'll fix it in a patch later, right?
Mm.
And that kills the population of the game. So when you release a product that's not polished, people are like, "Nah, I'm gonna go play something else," and so the population starts to dwindle and die.
Interesting, because I'm a big Madden guy. I get probably the every year when a new Madden comes out. Growing up, I have a whole stack of just Madden. But I got the latest Madden when Caden was born, and it was for the Xbox One, and then also for the what is like the Series X or something like the latest
Mm-hmm.
Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
So I got it for the Xbox One, and I was playing it, and like you can customize your jerseys. I was playing with the Vikings as like a retro jersey or something, and for some reason, all of the numbers, regardless of who they were, it started with like 9. So like Justin Jefferson, who was 18, was running around with number 98 on, and it only happened when I wore those jerseys, and it was like so frustrating because it's like I
Mm-hmm.
want to, it's just not the guys, and so I ended up hooking it up to the once I got a new Xbox. I threw it in there, and then everything was fine. It was good to go. So it was almost like they just kind of got lazy with it, and like maybe
Mm-hmm.
this will get them to get the new Xbox. I'm not gonna fix it while it's on the old system. So that got
Right.
really frustrating. But,
Yeah, and then I can't stand that, man. Just rushing things to production just to make that quick buck, and they do. They make a lot of money, right? And especially with
mm-hmm,
Maddens and stuff like that, people know they're coming out every year. Call of Duty, they know they're coming out every year. They're gonna pre-order these games, so they make all their money on the front, and then because they've made all their money, they're not gonna fix all the problems because the money's already been made. They're not going to
mm-hmm,
keep getting money off of that
right.
once they've made their money on the front end. So they'll just get it playable, and then we're already developing the next one, so we'll
Mm-hmm.
fix that in the next one.
Right.
I
And then
hate
they
I
tell
hate
people
that.
that. And that's frustrating.
Yeah.
Uh, well, cool. What an awesome little offshoot. With that, we kind of touched about your story just a little bit. Now I'm just going to kind of give you the opportunity for everybody to kind of get to know you just on a little bit on another level.
Hmm.
And, we kind of discussed what that looks like. So wherever you want to start, and you
Okay.
already kind of gave the story about your dad, so maybe you can touch on that and then kind of maybe move on going forward from that, or whatever you want to do.
So I'll go back to that in a bit, because that obviously really molded who I was, or who I
Mm-hmm.
became. My family is most of them, long tradition of the men go into the service, or they become cops, or both. The women all become something in the medical field, whether it's, we have a plethora of nurses, there's a shrink, there's a nurse practitioner, and an x-ray tech. That's just kind of where we go. We're a service-based type of family. My stepdad is retired LAPD detective. My dad was Pomona PD. My uncle's a retired lieutenant for LA County Sheriff's Department. My cousin retired as a deputy for the LA County Sheriff's Department. I obviously, I didn't retire, but I left LA County as a jailer. Um, so there's a lot of that in our history. My parents divorced when I was super young. I believe I was 2, which kind of molded things a little bit there growing up. Um, and I got into law enforcement at a very, what I would consider a young age. I'd been trying to get in for a couple of years, and I really wanted to be a deputy on the street, but they would not hire me as a street cop because I had a hit and run on my record from when I was younger. Um, and so they're like, you know what? Come. By the way, they labeled their jailers as custody assistants. No lamer title in the world,
Custody
and
assistant.
and it has like a stigma for all their jailers. They're all like, "Yeah, I'm just a CA. I'm just a custody assistant." Like, no, bro, you matter.
Mm-hmm.
You're shoulder to shoulder with the deputies doing the same job, bro. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to feel bad about that. So uh, I get hired on with LA County. Took a couple of years. Went through a full 3-month academy, high stress academy. They beat the crap out of you, and kind of like boot camp, where they tear you down and they build you back up, so you know that you can handle it. It makes you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went straight into maximum security from there. Um, I was up at the north, well, not north. It was the North County area. There were 4 jails on that property. It was no, I was at the one called East Max, East PDC East, maximum security, whatever. Very high stress, very violent, um, and I found out real quickly that that was kind of the job for me. Uh, I was really good at, you know, leading teams and going into high stress and riots and fights and all kinds of terrible things. And I was good at it, and I loved having my backup was seconds away, not minutes to maybe half an hour away, like on the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I put out over the radio, 415 deputy, this is my location, people were coming, and you heard the thunder of 60 pairs of boots just stomping on concrete trying to get to you to help you out. There's no better feeling than knowing that your people are coming.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It reminds me of Lord of the Rings. Do you watch Lord of the Rings, or have
mm-hmm,
you? And was it the third one when they're getting beat, and all of a sudden Gandalf comes up over the hill with all the
mm-hmm.
riders of Rohan, and they come down and just
That's exactly what
that's
that
got to
feels
be an
like.
intense feeling. Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
they call it the county thunder because you can hear the thunder coming down the hall,
Mm.
and that's usually when the inmate gives up.
Uh
Once they start to hear that.
huh.
um
Just
but
thunderstrucks playing over the intercom.
yeah, so, and after having dealt with that, it's like, well, maybe I don't want to go to the road. Maybe I don't want to be a street cop anymore. Maybe I want to be in corrections.
Mm.
um I would also say that it's nice to have it's a controlled environment, both with the inmates and with the temperature. So it's super hot out there. I don't like the heat,
That's a good point.
you know? Not to say that, so that building was built in the 50s, so the air conditioning would break every year and then the walls would sweat and that would be miserable. But for the most part, the temperature was controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was high stress because in that particular place, they were all in there for very high level offenses. There was a lot of gang activity. Gangs run those jails. We don't have any control over it. Um, and it there's a reason why our profession doesn't live long after retirement, because you're dealing with that stress. Your body's used to it. Finally, you retire and you're like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to relax. And your body's like, oh, we're not stressed anymore. Cool. We're good. You're checking out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just after a while, you start to realize that it wears on you. So after that jail shut down, um, because it needed some major repairs. As you can imagine, it was built in the 50s. So, like, the main water line was completely collapsed because it was made of clay. That's how old it
Oh,
was.
wow.
Um, and so they shut it down, and I got sent downtown uh, to deal with more maximum security nonsense. And it was like starting completely over. The there's a pretty significant amount of hazing when it comes to that place, and I personally think that that has its place. You have to prove your mettle. You have to prove to everybody else that they can trust you there, because it's high stress, it's high violence. You have to be able to perform, and if they can't trust you, then it's not going to work.
Right.
So there is a lot of hazing, but hazing gets kind of a bad rap. I think that it's necessary in certain circumstances. But these kids who'd only been on for 6 months, who were hazed pretty harshly, like, okay, it's my turn. It's my turn. This is a new face. I'm gonna screw with this guy. And I real quick had to be like, yo, dude, like, homie, don't play that game. I've been at that point. I'd been on for 4 or 5 years. Like, you always you would look at someone's boots. If they were shiny, they were new. If they were tore up and gross, like, that guy had some time under his belt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I got tired of having to constantly remind the new people that, hey, I've been around a lot longer than you have. I've dealt with stuff that you've never dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
So slow your roll. So after a few months there, I got the opportunity to go back to PDC East, because there was something about, you had to house a certain number of inmates in a facility so it wasn't considered closed. That way you wouldn't have to bring it up fully up to code when you went to fill it back up. So they decided to move the fire camp inmates in there when they booted the max guys out.
Mm-hmm.
And only, like, the super OG people got to work at fire camp, right? Like, the guys that had 15, 20 years on were the only ones that had enough seniority to win that bid. So, like, 4 or 5 years, they shipped me downtown, and then by the grace of God, I got an opportunity to go back, for the fire camp program, and that was the best. Um, I'd never seen a side of jailing like that before. These guys were lower security. They wanted to be there. They were chosen. They had to pass physical backgrounds, and if they had any kind of discipline in their history, or if they were even the slightest problem, they were out. You
Mm-hmm.
just boot them out. You go somewhere else. Um, so they were a lot better to work with. Also, you spent your days out in the sunlight, as did they, all day long. We were hiking them in the hills on the property,
Wow.
because we were teaching them to be wildland firefighters. They were swinging tools, cutting line, hiking all day long. It was just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I did that for a number of years. Fast forward to, like, I think 2016, I started talking to my wife, or we started, not my wife at the time, but we were kind of talking. And my the I end up totaling my motorcycle. So this particular night, the my I remember my aunt had just went to the hospital on a 72-hour hold for threats of suicide, and I was processing that like any good jailer would. So I was at the bar with my buddies, and then thinking I was fine, jumped on my motorcycle and started heading home. And I wasn't so drunk that I couldn't ride, but I was impaired enough to where I was pushing yellow lights. Also, I'm an invincible jailer, right? Like nobody can hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pushing yellow lights. Well, on this next light, this lady was jumping her green arrow. So she turned in front of me as I was pushing the yellow light, and I just smashed into the front of her minivan. Remember December is when my dad went into the hospital for wrecking his bike. December, almost to the day, is when I end up in the same ER, the same room, the same everything for the
Wow.
same problem. Total a motorcycle,
Wow.
snapped both my wrists, messed up a bunch of stuff on my left side, TBI, like the whole nine, right? And I just totally just screwed myself up. And I think like all of that happened for a reason. So up until that point, from my 20s, I was almost going to be turning 30 at that point. Um, that was my life, right? Jailing and then partying with my friends. Jailing, party with my friends. Like the blow off the steam with booze. We had big parties at our house all the time. I lived with three of my best guy friends, so I was living that frat boy life, even though like never joined a frat, never really went to college all that much,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just all the time. Like I was just wasting time in a sense because that was the only way I could blow off steam. So this happens, and it really put me on a different trajectory in life after that. Um, I then started to realize that God's like, hey, you need to be paying attention to this girl. This girl's something. So she she's obviously trying to get a hold of me all night. She's texting my cousin, like, and I eventually got a hold of both my cousin and my old man, like, hey, I'm in the hospital. This is where I'm at. I don't know what's going on. Help.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right.
so my dad comes jamming down. He was like an hour and a half away, and he looks around and he's like, it's weird being on this side of the fence for once. Like, it's eerie to be back in this room as a guest.
Yeah, what are the odds of that? Wow.
Yeah, the odds of that are astronomical, which is how I know God was like, I'm going to make a point today.
Uh-huh.
You've been screwing up for too long. There's more to life than jailing and partying.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, a lot of things changed very quickly. I started taking things more seriously. I started talking to my wife, and then I ended up like, so the insurance money for that motorcycle went to a down payment on a house out in the desert in the middle of nowhere. Uh, and my wife flew her and our son out to California, and we started living that family life. I was still jailing at fire camp, but after my injury, I was obviously on light duty forever,
Mm-hmm.
very long time. So then I started, because I was on light duty, I was on the desk, and they were down at the fire camp. I was in the East Facility building, but they were down at the fire camp, which is separate.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start separating from your partners like that, you become, singled out as the lazy guy, the piece of shit. And to a point, they were right. I started to get comfortable just sitting at the desk, browse and just around on the internet and answering phone calls and getting switches and doors and stuff. And I got real comfortable doing that. I started getting out of shape, and like it got to a point where I was self-conscious enough about it to where I didn't feel comfortable going back in the hills with the inmates. And then starts to get that divide, right? Like the guys, they start to look at you differently, and you're separate from them. So you're no longer the guy that still stood shoulder to shoulder with them and all those riots and all those terrible things. And also, like we've discussed before, idle hands at the devil's playground. So with the fire camp, there was a lot of downtime. Once we hiked him out in the hills and brought him back and fed him lunch, like there wasn't a whole lot more going on for the rest of your day. You're
Mm-hmm.
kind of just sitting around doing your visuals. So they naturally start to think, we got to have something to talk about, right? Let's talk shit on Chris and what a lazy piece of shit he is for only wanting to be up in central control. And it's like, okay, that's a little unfair, but I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that started to really deteriorate my mental health. Um, and so, you know, my wife kind of saw it before I did. And then COVID happened, 2020, right? We all love COVID.
Boo.
Yeah. And I wasn't worried about COVID, but I was worried about the breakdown of social order. I was worried that because I'd never been more than or less than 70 miles away from my work. I was very far away from home. Stand by. So if something had happened at home, I wasn't close enough to get back to protect my family. So I made the decision to pack up my family and I drove them out here to Minnesota, to Brainerd, because that's where she and her family are. And I left them here to where her family could watch over and protect them. And then I jumped on a plane and came back to California. And I didn't go anywhere without either a shotgun or my pistol. I didn't leave the house much. Mental health continuing to deteriorate. I was worried that things were going to happen. And then your mental health gets worse because your family's not around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my rock is gone,
Mm-hmm.
and FaceTime is not the same. And so we start thinking, you know what? California is going in the toilet with all their policies and all the other dumb decisions that Newsom at the time was making.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever his puppet master was, I don't know. So they're making all these terrible decisions, and I'm like, man, this place is for the birds. We got a nice house, and I'm making good money, and the medical benefits are the bee's knees, right? Like, I never paid more than a $10 copay. I wrecked a motorcycle, um, ambulance ride, all that stuff, $10 copay. We
Wow.
had our little girl, $10 copay. Like, I paid for near nothing as far as medical goes, which was
Mm-hmm.
hard to let go of because our
Mm-hmm.
son has a lot of medical issues between asthma and he's allergic to the entire world and he's got all these things. And it's like that's always been her big thing is we always, as I'm sure you can sympathize with, we
Mm-hmm.
always, all this money is going to be going out to medical.
Right.
And I'm like, I get that, but I am legitimately worried living here, and I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm feeling a pull on my heart to bring us back to Minnesota.
This is all
I'd never
still during COVID, so it was like not knowing what the world was going to do at that time. That okay, right?
right, and so she's like, "All right, um, call Deuce, the one Deuce that we work with,
Mm-hmm.
because they're friends."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Okay." Give her a call. I'm like, hey, what are the chances I can fly out and get just a jail tour? And at that point, it was like, no, we are locked down. Nobody's coming in. No volunteers. No, none of that. That's just not going to happen right now. I was like, okay, keep me posted if a job opens up. And a while down, well, let's back up a little bit. My family was out here from March of 2020, the beginning of COVID, until May or June. So they were gone for months.
Mm-hmm.
And that killed me. So they end up coming back and business as usual, waiting to hear back. And finally Deuce is like, we have a lot of openings all of a sudden. Put in an application. So I did. And it took Troy a long time to get back to me. I'm a little offended that it took him like it seriously took him like 6+ months to even get back to me. Like, I'm not even talking about an interview, nothing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, dude. And they had at that point there were like 10 vacancies they had to fill. You
Wow.
would think you'd want someone with some experience to,
Right.
like, come on.
Especially the experience you had. Was it him at the time, or was it the other one that would have been in charge of that? Or were you talking with Troy?
Um, he would have been LT1, so he was second in command at that point.
Okay.
Um, and he had just become LT1. So that might have been the issue, kind of transitioning into his new role and dropped the ball on a few things, but I still going to have a conversation with him about that someday. So eventually I get my my interview, and thankfully Shane and Deuce and Patrice were on the panel, and they were like, sold, bring this guy on, right?
Right.
And then things moved quickly. Packed up the house, moved out here. This house was a complete ground up restoration project. It was a dump. Still has a lot of work to go, but I'm only one man, and I try to do as much of it by myself as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come out to Minnesota, right? That's at that point I've been jailing for 12 years, and I immediately loved it here because the inmate population, while at that point we did have, some of the native mob issues from Cass County, it was nowhere near as violent as California, right? So when I asked them, like, okay, how often are you guys dealing with riots and stuff like that? And they're like, riots, what are you talking about? And then I came in, I was like, cool, where are your special weapons? Like, if we need to respond, like, what's the policy for all that? And they're like, they're locked in the basement, bro. We don't use them. And I'm like, what is this world that you live in where you don't have to deal with all this violence and all the gang problems and all the politics and all that other stuff? And they're like, no, you're going to come in, you're going to do your job. And cool. All right. So I spent a year as just a regular line staff. And then during that first year, Burke pulled me aside. He's like, I want you as an FTO. And I'm like, I haven't been here that long, bro. Like, I don't feel like I've earned my stripes yet.
Which is it's a field training officer, for those who don't know. It's like somebody who trains in people.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
And he's like, you have a wealth of knowledge to share that nobody else in this jail has. And I want you to be the one who trains people. I'm like, all right, I'll put in for it. Went through that interview process as you did yourself. And I got it. And I'm very proud of the trainees that I've cranked out. One of them actually recently pulled me aside a couple weeks ago, and he's like, hey man, I'm still thankful about all of the training. Like, that all has stuck with me. I would not be who I am without your teaching, and I really appreciate that. And man, that means the world to hear that, because, in my mind, like, I am super harsh on myself. In my mind, when I make mistakes, there is no greater piece of shit than me, right? There is no forgiveness. And that comes from LA. Like, they treat you like that. When you f up, you get yelled at and you get the shit beat out of you, and then, you learn from it, you move on. But like, there's that battered wife syndrome kind of, and I'm not sure that's something I'll ever be 100% rid of. But I mean, clearly I'm doing something right? Because, within that first year I make FTO, and then a year or so after that I make programmer, and that's changed my life. It's changed my outlook on jailing, because then we were able to implement, the impact program, and I get people that come and volunteer, and they want to help the population become something better. Like, I never had the opportunity to teach and try to help in LA. We were too busy fighting the enemy. That was pretty close.
It's just a mic. It's just a mic.
Yeah, but when you just touch them, it's like, BOOM!
Enemy.
It's just a mic. Well, and there's some stuff like that I had to deal with too. Like,
right, man.
For the first couple of years here, like, the PTSD is real. Like, you're checking your corners, you're sitting by the exits, you're watching the doors, and like, I still do a lot of that, but I don't feel like I have to carry a pistol everywhere I go anymore.
Right.
So, and I still jump a little bit when they approach me on the outside, but now I'm being approached with an extended hand
Mm,
saying,
man.
"Hey, I appreciate what you did for us."
Mm,
And it's like, "Oh man, that's a whole different feeling than playing whack-a-mole, right?
mm-hmm.
You're in there with a shield and a stick and you're just trying to make it stop."
Mm-hmm.
Like it it's just a whole different thing here.
And what a great transition from, and that kind of gets me thinking. So, from what was the transition like from, mentally coming from LA, where you go into work not knowing if it's going to be your last day with the different fights and stuff that's got to go on. I'm sure after dealing with that population for as long as you did, and maybe being in the what you call it, the fire camp,
Mm-hmm.
maybe being in that, it helped kind of shift your perspective on these people too, because we all come into this career wanting to help, wanting to serve. I come from a law enforcement family as well, and my grandma, she was a nurse, so it's kind of interesting how, how we have that kind of in common. But sometimes people's perspective can get shifted from wanting to help people. You get in there, and then it's just all these, oh, they're so ungrateful. All they do is fight, and maybe we do just need to lock them up, throw away the key, and maybe you had that perspective dealing with these people in LA, and now you get the opportunity to be in the fire camp, and then coming to Crowing and having this plan of bringing the impact program to it, and almost having the different perspective of, okay, these are people who are hurting, and maybe we can play a part in rehabilitating them so that they don't reoffend, so that they can move on and make a difference in their lives and the people around them. What was that shift kind of like? And maybe you can segue into impact, what it's all about, and what that has looked like.
It was challenging because, well, yeah, I did sign up to serve my community. Like in the beginning, and it's what they drill into you in the academy because it is so violent. There is so many gang issues, and they are very manipulative. They do try to get everything from you. As far as the inmate population goes, they're very manipulative. So it's shields up at all times. Transitioning to fire camp was hard, like having to dial back that maximum security mindset. And I was very deep in at that. I was already super jaded at that point. Like everybody, these guys, it's us versus them. Like we go to war every day, and
Yeah.
when you go to war every day, like you kind of need to have that mindset because otherwise you don't go home, and your family's left with a box, right?
Mm.
So uh, transitioning to fire camp where we're giving them axes and chainsaws and things that you don't give inmates, and it was really difficult to kind of dial back. And all my buddies that were maximum security guys beforehand were like, "I get it. I was there too, but we have to dial that back." Um, I'm like, "All right, man," and I'm just gonna follow your lead, and we'll see where it goes. And so I did gradually start to ease off, but I was still very jaded, reserved. All that damage and stuff from previous was there's nothing I could do about it. It was
Mm-hmm.
there.
Right.
So it wasn't until we decided to uproot and move across the country that I was able to kind of let go of some of it. And we have mental health resources too
Mm.
at the jail, right? Like we have a lot of that. LA didn't have any of that.
Mm.
I don't think they do to this day. Um, and there's a reason why they're only at 75% staff. They're down so many people, and there's mandatory 40 plus hours of overtime a month. Like they're
Jeez.
burning their people out, and they don't seem to be coming up with any solutions for it. So transition to Minnesota here, and it's just a whole different ballgame. Seeing how my FTOs interact with the inmates, we're in the units with the inmates, which is new to me. That would have not flied in LA. That you get hurt being in there with them alone. That's a no no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you never went into a unit with less than 3-4 people.
Right.
So like that was super uncomfortable at first, but then as I start to get to know the population and how they operate, I was able to kind of dial it back and then start dealing with the new problem that I had never dealt with before, which is the mental health cases that we have in booking.
Mm-hmm.
There's a special jail designated for that in LA, and they have very specialized teams to deal with that. Um, and I was not obviously a part of that, so that was a whole new learning experience for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
talking people down in crisis or in active psychosis, whether it's meth or fentanyl induced, or maybe they've just snapped. That's a whole new ball game. And then
Right.
um, it was nice to kind of be presented the opportunity to become a programmer, and then developing impact. And now I feel like we're making a legitimate difference for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole new way of jailing, and I get that not everybody's on board because LA Chris would not have been on board either. Matter of fact, I wasn't. They had similar programs out there that I was like, no, that's not what jailing is. Like, these guys are irreparable. We cannot help them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a horrible way to live your life. It's miserable to be in that mindset, and I will not be the guy that dies 2 years after retirement, right? Because I'm gonna know my purpose. I know my why, and I'm gonna fight to make sure that we keep this going.
Mm-hmm. The visual that I got as as you come from LA to here and kind of maneuver, it's almost like you're in with Iron Purpose. The logos and knights. This kind of just I drew to this, but you got your mask is down and you're ready to go to war. You go in there and you're with your brothers and sisters. You're like, all right, let's do this. It's us versus them kind of thing. And then you kind of get to the fire camp and you're like, all right, well maybe I can put this up a
Yeah,
little bit so I can talk with them a little bit more. Maybe my sword is all right. I'm going to sheath this thing. And then you come to crowing and you're around these people. And then you get to the impact program. It's like, all right, I can take this helmet off and we're going to sit down in booking. We're going to talk to this person who's absolutely, losing their marbles. And whether it's a younger person on a DWI that's crying, thinking their life is over, or like you said, somebody who's, you know, tweaking on, fentanyl or whatever it is, where like you have to like, you're not going to get anywhere with your mask down and your sword and shield up. Like you have to be able to take that off and be able to grab it, put it back on, and switch. Be able to put that mask down if you have to. I think that's a lot of thing. A lot of people don't have that ability to be able to remove their helmet and be a human being and talk with somebody, and also be able to put it on at the same time when the time requires. Because I don't want people to get it wrong. We're not walking around without our helmets. We're still head on a swivel. We're still safe, but there's a way to go from being this warrior to also a warrior for mental health, for rehabilitation, to like actually care for people and about people. And there has been quite a shift even from when I started 2.5 years ago in crowing, of there's just positivity within the units. Every now and then you still have fights like we did the other day, but like it seems there's just this big positive shift. And I think it starts from taking those guys who are interested in impact and those guys that are in there actually wanting to make a change and creating this positive environment from within. And I think it all starts from you being the kind of guy to be able to take off your helmet and meet these guys at their low points and say, hey, this isn't the end. This is something that we can move forward from and move on from. And having experiences like your dad's crash and having to help him for so long, and your own crash and these different things that you've gone through, I'm sure has helped you help them to see, like at the lowest points, like, hey, this isn't the end. We're able to keep going from that. Have you seen that connection from your past experiences and able to help these guys who think their lives are over?
yeah. I find that it really helps me connect with some of the more gangster ones too. Like, I was able to, the one who went away for murder, I was able to connect with him on a level that nobody else was,
Mm,
because hey man, I grew up in the Long Beach area too, bro. Like, I know what gangster is, right? um this doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be your life. And yeah, even though you're probably going away for a really long time, like, it's your choice on whether or not you want to use that time wisely or not and come out on the other side.
mm-hmm,
And it'll be up to him. Like, there's nothing I can do on what choices he makes. But it's also different too, because like I said, walls up at all times. um I'm not used to sharing personal things, and I don't share a ton with the inmates. That's unwise, but
Mm-hmm.
I have experiences that they can relate to, that they go, oh, okay, well, he's not, that there's not much difference between us and them, right?
Right.
It's just a couple of choices we've made along the way, and a couple of lucky, maybe we just didn't get caught for things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a knuckle dragger. Like, I'm not an expert on anything. Like, I
Same, man.
can parrot some things that I've learned in trainings that I've had. I can parrot some things in YouTube videos that I've watched, but at the end of the day, like, you and I are pretty similar. You got caught, bro. You
Mm-hmm.
got caught, and this is your chance to make the repairs you need to make with the community, with yourself, with your family. Like, and some of you are going to have to work harder than others.
Mm-hmm.
And the second you let go of that victim mentality of how the world's out to get you, and nothing's fair, and it's this person's fault and that person's fault, it's like, yeah, maybe you got a raw deal on a few things, but how many things did you actually do that you didn't get caught for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's own up to some of this stuff and make the changes for real.
Right.
um I've definitely, I've, it's weird being able to connect with these guys, because that's not what my past experience is.
Right. No, I totally get that. And being in there in those classes, like you said, you don't want to share too much, but when you're able to share stuff you've gone through and like not stand up there and be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the topic for the day. And I'm going to preach on like this topic, whatever. Like when you can sit down with them and say, and I've done it before as well. Like I'm no expert. I tell them, I'm not a pastor. I'm not going to be up here to be able to change your life. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a, a therapist, whatever. I'm just a guy going through life trying to figure it out as well. And that's a lot of times how I'm able to get conversations out of them because they're like, oh, all right, maybe I can teach this guy something as well. Maybe what I have to say can help him. And just a big circle of stuff. And I'm sitting up there, I'm taking notes with what these guys are saying, and it means a lot to them
Absolutely.
when they're like, "Oh wow, he really cares what I have to say." Like he's not just a CEO, hungry power, guy trying to boss me around. Like he generally does care and wants change. And when they can see that, and when you can make it relatable, like
Well,
it's
and when they see you taking notes, and I always make a point to really dig in on that. When they say something, I'm like, that's a good point, I will implement that in my life.
mm-hmm,
I make sure that I let them know, like, hey, like, that was good for me. That, I don't know if you all connected with that, but I'm going to take that home with me, and I'm going to use that. Like, that gives them a sense of pride, right? Like, oh my, I taught the CO something today. Like,
mm-hmm,
yeah, dude, I got stuff to learn too.
right.
Um,
I don't have it all figured out.
yeah, I mean, I didn't even get through college, right? So let's not put me on this pedestal that I'm not.
Right.
But I think I connect because I was able to change the uniform, right? I'm in a polo now. I don't carry a taser. I don't I don't dress up like I'm ready to invade Poland, right? It's the more of that I can give up, the more I can connect, because they see that I'm not the same
Mm-hmm.
as just a regular CO.
Right.
So,
So, we're getting pretty close to wrapping it up, but I just want to touch on something, one of the things that kind of wanted me to have you on in the first place, and we've had an awesome conversation up to this point. We could end it right now, and I would be so content. But mental health, you kind of touched on it a couple times throughout you talking about your story and different things that you've gone through. What were the key points in helping you get through those, really scary times or those mental health crisis moments? And, um, you said your aunt was on a 72-hour hold for like you said, suicide or possible. And, I think that's a topic that people don't like to touch. They want to stay away from it because it's just icky to try to even think about. And, thankfully, I think nowadays more people are talking about it because of how serious it is and how many people are hurting. And maybe somebody can see this conversation and they can go, "Oh, Chris went through that, and he had to deal with these different things in his life. Well, maybe I can do it too. Maybe I can go one more day." And essentially, that's the point of this whole podcast, is to sharpen each other, to help each other out, to find that community, and understand that we can't do this alone. Nobody is perfect, like we just talked about. And so I just interested to kind of hear your thoughts on that topic, and maybe you can kind of finish it with saying, what you think. And again, you're not going to have all the answers, but what helped you keep moving forward through that?
At the time, I don't think that I had the skills necessary, which is why I got that in an accident, right? This is why I think, because I wasn't a believer at the time. Um, I was aware of his existence, and I believe that he saved my father at that point. But I think that God was like, okay, we're gonna crash you into this van, and then you're gonna have some epiphanies. So like my mindset was going this way, and then now I'm going this way.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with my aunt's situation, I did not deal with that in a healthy way, right? Like I was out partying with the boys, but I'm a super social person, so like I need that connection to friends to help process and deal with things. So I do have a really good friend, my best friend, who he helped me move to Minnesota. He came out here, he stayed with me for a couple of months, helped me rebuild this house, and then eventually he ended up coming back, and he lived in Minnesota for a year, and then realized that Minnesota wasn't for him, and he left, which was hard. Um, but having the social structure, like the pillars that you and Chad Robichaud always talk about, like having those pillars of wellness, the social one is huge for me. And I don't have a huge social structure here. I need to build that back up. I need to figure that out because right now it's lacking. The spiritual one, I need to be better about going back to church, and I've been praying a lot lately, and I think that's been helpful.
Mm,
um, and learning to pray not just when you need something.
right.
Pray when you're thankful for the things that you have. That showing gratitude for what you have in your life, it does something positive for your mental health. Um, Physical, I'm absolutely lacking in. I'm an absolute fat piece of shit that I need to work on. So I need to find me an accountability buddy for that one.
Hey, I need to do the same, man. The dad bod is for real. So
Um,
yeah, we'll talk.
well, I've transitioned from dad bod to 50 pounds of chewed bubblegum, so I might have a little bit more work to go than everyone else. Maybe not everyone, but definitely you. Um,
Whatever.
I don't remember what's the fourth pillar? Is it economic?
Um, we got
Womp,
social,
womp.
physical, mental,
Social.
spiritual.
Oh, mental. So mental and spiritual are separate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then with mental, we have those resources with a mental health provider that we can lean on, and I do. Um, for those of us who work with Crow Wing County, use your 6 sessions. If you need more, they will get you more.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're free. Use them. There's no reason not to. Um, the new girl they just brought onto that team. It seems like she's awesome. I've not met with her yet, but I intend to. Um, that's a huge one because I've in those situations I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait, and finally once the sky is falling, right, like the world is coming to an end, then I finally reach out to those resources, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you need to do the work.
Right.
You're not going to wait until your motor's about to blow up to change the oil. You need to change the oil every
Mm-hmm.
3 to 5,000 miles. Like let's get under the hood. Let's see what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
That and not fighting the urge to sit on the couch when you're exhausted from a hard day's work or whatever terrible thing happened to you that day. Don't sit down, pull your phone out, and scroll on whatever terrible waste of time social media garbage. I don't have Instagram anymore. Facebook, I technically have, but don't use. I do still get sucked into YouTube every once in a while because I tell myself, oh well, it's helpful for my job, right? I'm going to find this motivational whatever. I'm going to do this, but you know, there you start clicking on those shorts, that's just garbage.
Yeah.
You know, they're just cookies for the brain rather than nourishing yourself with something that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And those videos are absolutely worthless if you're not willing to get outside and put them into practice.
Mm.
You can do all the research in the world, But if you're not willing to put them into practice, that was just a big waste of your time.
Mm-hmm. What a great
So,
point.
um, yeah. And as far as mental health and stuff like that goes, like we could go deep down the rabbit hole of suicidality or whatever, but I've got pages of notes on that, and I think that would be a whole other podcast at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we will someday in the future dive back into that. I think I think the main message with kind of what you said is, don't there is a lot of work that has to be done, and it shouldn't be done alone. And reaching out to people is huge. And I think kind of tying in our whole conversation to this point, like especially as a correctional officer, somebody who's you've been to battle, you've seen the worst in people, and sometimes you think, well, I'm tough, I don't need this. And I think a lot of people are like that. They're like, well, I'm the one on this side of the fence. I don't have to worry about my own mental health. And sometimes they take that home to their families and they try to CO their family. And like there has to be that separation as well. And then just being able to get down to the nitty gritty of yourself. And I like the analogy you said about wait to the very last minute to change your oil. At least you shouldn't. Like there are
Right.
people that do, but at least you shouldn't. You got to be on top of that stuff if you want your vehicle to operate. And I kind of gave the same analogy to my brother a little while ago, and he was like, "Man, my mental health just isn't the greatest." And it's like, well, are you eating good? Are you drinking good? Like, if you're not fueling your body properly, like your vehicle's not going to run. And if you don't put gas and oil in your car, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." And so taking care of that and getting under the hood, and maybe sometimes like myself, I don't know what's going on. If I open up a hood under the hood and I'm looking at this motor, like I'm gonna have to call you up, be like, hey man, I don't know what's going on with this, I don't know anything about it's making this noise or it's doing that, what do I do? And there was a time in my life too where I had to do that. I had to call up a therapist and meet with her, and I found out things that I didn't even like realize were going on. Like you just kind of choose to exist with your engine light on. You continue to just drive that car with the engine light on and think, whatever it is, what it is. Or but when you can kind of get down underneath that and figure out, oh, this is why this is happening, or this is why that I think this way. All right, now I know next time how to correct it and how to get myself out of this hole before it gets way too dark. Because I think all too often people try to just keep going on and driving on empty and running them with that engine light on until it explodes, or until they say, I can't deal with this anymore, I'm gonna veer off this cliff. And if you are out there listening to this and you're struggling and you're having a really tough time and you're not knowing what to do, like just reach out to somebody, even if it is throwing something on Facebook saying, hey, I need to talk with somebody. Or you have my contact information. If you're watching this, you can reach out on social media. And I'm sure even Chris, you call the Crow County Jail and say, hey, is Chris working? He seems like a pretty cool guy, I want to talk to him. I think I can't speak for you, but you're nodding your head. I think he would be one that would even say, hey, you can get through this. Because far too many people end life a lot shorter than they should.
Yeah, and maybe I should touch on that real quick before we wrap up. The People need to understand that 25% of suicides happen within 5 minutes of making the decision. It's a split second decision that forever changes everything, right? It affects your family, it affects your friends, and obviously it affects you, right? That's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Just taking the time and distancing yourself from your lethal means and reaching out, having the courage to reach out to somebody. Um, and if you are the friend that's noticing the change in behavior, like they are losing interest in hobbies that they love, something, and when terrible things happen in their lives, whether it's divorce or loss of life or sickness or whatever it is, you tell when people are starting to go down. And some of them, like, there's nothing we can do. Like, your buddy gets drunk and he decides, life's too horrible, and he eats his gun. Those ones you can't necessarily do anything about. And alcohol does play a major factor in a lot of suicides. But understand that most of them are fleeting thoughts. 25% under 5 minutes, 50% are under 20 minutes, 90% are under an hour of making the decision, and 90 it's either 90 or 95% people who live through a suicide attempt do not go on to attempt again, which tells you it's a fleeting thought. You can get through it, but you have to ask for help. 988 is a wonderful resource that you don't necessarily have to use for suicide. You can reach out to them for other things, like, I'm struggling with my mental health for this. Like, can you help me? Provide me resources that they will help with a multitude of things. Reach out to that friend that you trust. Reach out to that family member you trust. Reach out to your church member that you trust, your pastor, whatever, because it will get better if you just take a second to pause. I'm in a really bad place. I'm having some bad thoughts. I need to not isolate myself. I need to pull myself out of this, and I need to reach out. Anybody. Reach out to anybody. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
It will pass.
Absolutely.
And questions if you are the person on that other side of the coin where you're the friend, ask, how's your mental toughness today? I've noticed a change in your behavior. What's going on? I'm going to ask you a hard question. Are you thinking about dying? Talking about suicide will not increase the chance of them dying by suicide. You need to talk about it. Bring it to the front of their mind. And have the courage to ask those questions, because the alternative is much worse.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, like you said, there is hope. There is, yesterday did end yesterday, and today is a new day with new opportunity. And so I like this. I've heard it said, the sun did go down yesterday. It's going to go down today, and it will come up again tomorrow with new opportunities. As the sun is literally shining into my face right now, it's just a reminder of hope. Like, okay, there is still more to this life. There is still more ahead of me. I did wake up today. That means God's not done with me yet. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have. He would have been like, all right, he's gonna have a brain aneurysm in his sleep, and we're gonna take him now. But like, there's opportunity, and maybe if you can't smile today, maybe you can make somebody else smile. Maybe you can. And sometimes talking with somebody and trying to help other people smile can get the reverse effect and get you in that way as well. But I know we could talk about it for hours. We're hour 16 in. I literally think that I could sit here and have somebody bring me lunch and just keep going,
Right.
all day talking about this and talking with you. But I guess that just means we'll have to have another episode and do this again. But Chris, I very much appreciate your time. I appreciate all that you do for the jail and for guys like me. I really do look up to you, and you have helped with Impact, help provide me with a lot more purpose and a lot more passion in trying to use my skills, my abilities. So thank you again for all you do, my friend. Thank you isn't enough, but hopefully we'll have a long careers together. We'll see what happens moving forward, but I think we're just scratching the surface, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate all the kind words. Like, I do have another 15 to 20 years to go, depending on how this goes, right? I'm never going to stop fighting to help people and to help my partners. Like, there's a reason why I'm on the peer support team and Impact. I want to help both sides of the fence. So I will continue for however long I'm blessed with life, I will continue to do that. That is my purpose. So I look forward to many, many years with you, and maybe we'll start that social structure, that social pillar together, and we can build up a group of solid dudes that are trying to better themselves, right?
Let's go. I'm all for it, man. Cool beans, everybody. Chris Saicoe. It's a pleasure.